People always ask what moment changes a man, what breaks him, what rebuilds him. For Leon Grant, billionaire CEO of Grant's Grocers, it wasn't a boardroom crisis, a stock market crash, or a lawsuit. It was a woman crying over a lunch she couldn't afford in the break room of his own store. And the worst part, the part that burned him awake at night, was realizing he was the one who built that system. Leon wasn't supposed to be in that store, not as himself anyway. He was undercover, wearing a $12 thrift store tie and a fake name, after his COO told him bluntly, "Your employees are miserable, Leon. They won't tell you that to your face. Go see it for yourself." And for once, the numbers agreed. Satisfaction scores falling, turnover up, complaints piling quietly under polished reports. So here he was, Leon Green, yes, he even changed his last name, applying as a temp stock clerk in one of the busiest Grant's Grocers locations outside Milwaukee. The store manager, an exhausted man named Carl who looked like he lived on coffee and panic, skimmed Leon's fake resume and hired him on the spot. "We're desperate," Carl muttered. "Welcome aboard." By 10 a.m., Leon's back was screaming. Stocking shelves wasn't hard, but doing it fast, being interrupted every 2 minutes by customers, memorizing item codes, dealing with malfunctioning pallet jacks, it was chaos he'd never experienced. He'd run a company for 10 years, but realized he'd never understood its bones. At noon, Carl barked at him. "Lunch break." 30 minutes. Leon grabbed the sad sandwich he packed to blend in and walked toward the break room. Before he even opened the door, he heard it. Soft, shaky, muffled crying. He pushed the door gently. Inside, on a plastic chair with a crack in the leg, sat a young woman in a worn cashier apron, blonde hair in a messy low bun, mascara smeared from tears. She stared at a small lunch container like it had betrayed her. Leon froze. He could have walked away, pretended he didn't hear, avoided the awkwardness. But something in her posture, the defeated slump of someone holding too much alone, pulled him in. "Hey, you okay?" he asked cautiously. The woman jolted upright, wiping her face in a panic. I'm fine. Sorry. I'll leave." "No," Leon said, stepping inside. Please stay. I just started today. I'm Leon." She hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. "I'm Lily." Her voice cracked on the last syllable. Leon sat across from her, giving space. "You look like you've had one hell of a morning." Lily let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. "Try one hell of a year," she exhaled shakily. "Sorry." "I don't usually cry in front of strangers. It's embarrassing." "It's human," Leon said. "What's going on?" She stared at her lunch, wilted lettuce, a few bruised tomato slices, and what looked like salvaged vegetables. "My mom's sick. Stage 3 lymphoma. She can't work. I'm covering everything. Rent, bills, food, her meds, and She broke again, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I can't keep up. I asked for more hours, but Carl said maybe." Maybe means no, and I'm terrified. I work full-time, sometimes overtime, and still can't afford real groceries. So I eat the stuff that's about to be thrown out. Leon felt something twist painfully inside him. "You're not pathetic," he said quietly. "You're fighting for someone you love." She shook her head. "Fighting doesn't pay for chemotherapy." She tried to laugh it off. "Unless you're secretly a millionaire who wants to sponsor my life, there's nothing anyone can do." That hit Leon like a slap. If only she knew. If only she knew her desperation was aimed directly at the man responsible for the policies trapping her. Her wage, her insurance limitations, her lack of support, all approved by him. His chest tightened with something unfamiliar. Shame. Real, bone-deep shame. "What do you make an hour?" he asked. 12. 12? He echoed, stunned even though he'd signed off on it. "Yeah," she said with a sad shrug. "Corporate says it's above minimum wage, so we should be grateful." Leon felt physically ill. He'd never once considered what $12 meant in someone's real life, only what it meant on a balance sheet. "What about health insurance?" he pressed. Lily laughed bitterly. "They don't cover parents, only kids or spouses. I'm single. No kids, so my mom gets nothing. She wiped her eyes again. The assistance process takes months. She doesn't have months. Leon had never hated himself more than he did in that moment. I'm sorry, he whispered. For what? For everything you're going through. But what he meant was, I'm sorry I built a company where this is normal. After lunch, Leon worked the rest of the shift with a storm in his chest. He watched Lily at her register, still holding herself together for customers, still smiling politely even when people were rude, still helping an elderly man load groceries into his cart. She was kind, she was strong, and his system was crushing her. That night, Leon didn't drive home. He sat in his car for almost an hour, staring at the steering wheel, before finally dialing his COO. Mara, he said, clear my schedule for the week, and pull every document on wages, benefits, sick leave, everything. Leon, what happened? Reality, he muttered. Reality happened. The next 3 days, Leon returned to the store, blending in with the team. He learned more stories. Mark, who had 2 kids and still drove Uber at night. Joan, who rationed insulin because the insurance copay was too high. Tyler, who lived out of his car in the parking lot during winter. And Lily, he watched her quietly, seeing how exhaustion pulled at her shoulders, even while she kept smiling for customers. On his last Undercover day, Lily approached him in the break room. Thanks for listening the other day, she said shyly. It helped more than you think. Lily, he said gently, if you could change one thing here, just one, what would it be? She didn't hesitate. The pay. If I made even $3 more, everything would change. She laughed softly. I know that sounds ridiculous. It doesn't, Leon said. It sounds like clarity, she sighed. If insurance covered parents, that would be a miracle. But that'll never happen. Too expensive. Leon's jaw tightened. Maybe expensive isn't the same as impossible. She smiled at him like he was naive but kind. You talk like someone who actually cares. That's rare. Rare, from his own employee. He swallowed hard. Maybe caring should be normal. When her shift ended, she waved goodbye with a tired smile, unaware that every word she'd spoken would detonate inside Leon's life like dynamite. That night, he prepared for war, the kind fought in boardrooms with numbers, projections, and stubborn men in suits. And he intended to win. Leon Grant didn't sleep that night, or the next. Instead, he tore apart every policy he had ever approved, every spreadsheet, every benefit structure, every wage chart. When dawn finally broke, he walked into the boardroom with a look none of them had ever seen, clarity sharpened into purpose. The directors were already uneasy. They knew Leon didn't call emergency meetings unless something seismic was coming. And they were right. We're restructuring the entire compensation system, he said before anyone could even ask why, effective immediately. Silence, blinking, then panic. Leon, one director sputtered, that will cost millions. Leon finished, yes, and we can afford it. He laid out everything he had learned, Lily's story, Mark's, Joan's, Tyler's, the human cost of policies written by people who never carried a crate or survived on $12 an hour. The board pushed back, of course. They worried about profits, investors, margins. Leon sat there listening, then finally said, if running this company means asking people to choose between food and medication, then I shouldn't be running it. No one argued after that, not because they agreed, but because they knew the look in his eyes. He was going to do it with or without them, and he could. He held controlling shares. By 3 p.m., everything was signed. The next morning, Leon returned to the Milwaukee store, this time as himself. Suit, tie, name tag reading CEO. When Carl saw him, he choked so violently on his coffee that another employee slapped his back. Mr. Grant? Sir, oh God, why didn't you tell me? Because I needed honesty, Leon said simply, not performance. Carl looked 1 second away from fainting, but Leon waved him off. Relax. I'm not here about you. He scanned the registers until he found her. Lily. Her blonde hair was pulled back neatly today, but even from across the store, Leon could see the exhaustion in the way she stood. She hadn't noticed him yet. Good. He didn't want this to be a spectacle. Carl, Leon said quietly, can we use your office? 2 minutes later, Carl brought Lily to the doorway. He wants to talk to you, Carl stammered, then fled like the room was on fire. Lily froze when she saw Leon sitting behind the desk. She looked terrified. Lily, he said gently, please, sit. She sat on the edge of the chair like someone awaiting a sentencing. Am I in trouble? No, Leon said quickly. God, no. He leaned forward. Lily, do you remember the temp worker you talked to last week? Leon Green? She nodded slowly. Yes, he was kind. He listened. Leon exhaled. That was me. She went completely still. I beg your pardon? My name is Leon Grant. I run this company. I went undercover to see what was happening in our stores. And what you told me? His voice faltered. It changed everything. Lily stared at him as if trying to understand a foreign language. I complained about the pay and the insurance to the CEO. And you were right, Leon said softly. About all of it. He told her about the new policies. Minimum wage raised to $17 an hour, expanded insurance coverage including parents, paid sick leave, emergency family leave, profit sharing. She blinked rapidly, tears rising again. 17? She whispered. And my mom? She'd be covered? Yes, Leon said. She can start treatment immediately. Lily covered her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks, but they weren't the same tears he'd seen in the break room. These were relief, hope, life. I don't know what to say, she whispered. This is going to save her. You shouldn't have needed saving, Leon replied, voice thick. You should have been supported from the beginning. She shook her head. Why are you doing this? Leon swallowed, hard. Because I met a woman crying over bruised vegetables, he said. And it shattered me. Lily let out a breath that was almost a sob. You listened, she said. Most people don't. Most people should, Leon answered. From that day forward, Leon became a different CEO. Not the detached businessman he'd once been, but someone who showed up. Someone who walked stores, listened, asked questions, cared. Competitors mocked him. Shareholders accused him of being sentimental. Profit dipped slightly in the first quarter, but employee turnover dropped by 60%. Productivity skyrocketed. Applications doubled. And for the first time in years, Leon felt proud, truly proud of the company, bearing his family name. He visited the Milwaukee store often. Lily always greeted him shyly, still struggling to reconcile the temp worker she'd cried to with the billionaire CEO who'd changed her life. Her mother improved steadily with proper treatment. Her cheeks grew rosier. Her laugh returned, and Lily, freed from the crushing weight of constant fear, began to look like someone her own age. One afternoon, 6 months after everything changed, Leon received an invitation. A small, handwritten card in careful penmanship. Mom's remission party this Saturday. We would love if you came. Lily. He went. Of course he went. Lily's mother hugged him so tightly he froze for a moment, then hugged back. You gave my daughter hope, she whispered. You gave me time. Time. The one currency even billionaires couldn't buy. Later, as the small gathering chatted over homemade food, Lily approached Leon with 2 cups of lemonade. For you, she said quietly, and thank you for everything. Thank you, Leon replied. You were brave enough to tell the truth. She shook her head. I was desperate. Sometimes desperation and courage look the same, Leon said gently. Months passed. Then a year. Forbes wrote an article questioning whether Leon's new employee first model was sustainable. Leon answered with an op-ed that went viral. Profit means nothing if the people earning it can't afford to live. A business that forgets its humanity has already failed, but the real victories were smaller. Mark sent his daughter to college. Joan stopped rationing insulin. Tyler found an apartment because he could finally afford a deposit. And Lily, she'd been promoted to assistant manager, something she'd never dared hope for. One evening, Leon visited the same break room where everything had begun. He sat alone, remembering Lily's tears on that first day, remembering the container of bruised vegetables, remembering the moment his heart cracked open and forced him to see the world as it was, not how it looked from his penthouse. Carl poked his head in. "Mr. Grant, everything okay?" Leon smiled faintly. "Everything's better than okay, Carl." When he was alone again, Leon whispered something he'd never said out loud. "Thank you, Lily, for breaking me. Because sometimes a heart needed to shatter, to let the light in, to make room for empathy, to remember that every business was built by human hands. And when people later asked Leon what moment had changed his life, he always gave the same answer. She was crying over a salad, and she told me she was tired. And I realized I'd built a world where someone working full-time couldn't afford to live. So I changed it, and every time he told the story, he meant it. She shattered his heart, and from the pieces, he built something better.